The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
This is Danny Bobrow, President of AIM Dental Marketing, welcoming you to this very special installment of the Practice Perfection Web-Based Education Series. Today's presentation is entitled, Dental Patients Are Just Like Us, How Successful Businesses Attract, Retain, and Maximize Relationships with Their Clients. As you know already, your dental practice is a business. And just as with any business, success requires clear, timely, and accurate communication with both current and prospective patients. It also requires access to real-time patient data so that any dental team member communicating with patients on the telephone can sound like a superstar. And that's just where a best-in-class telephony system can make a world of difference. Monroe McKay is a Senior Business Development Manager for Weave Communications. His flair for customer success and a passion for improving customer satisfaction has earned him both respect and admiration in the healthcare field. His fervor for providing doctors with tools to strengthen their customer relationships is remarkable. He's worked with and learned from some of the best educators and consultants in the field. Monroe was instrumental in building his company's training and support team, turning it into a destination where dentists and their teams receive the resources they need to excel and prosper. With over 13 years at companies who help dentists, Monroe understands how integral communication is to building a successful practice. He believes that equipped with the right skills and tools, it is both possible and simple to wow patients, both in the office and on the telephone. Monroe will show us today how to apply the valuable lessons each of us has learned as consumers ourselves to our practice, and how the front office team is an essential part of the customer experience, and how the most successful practices use software to enhance the customer experience. Before we get started, a few housekeeping items are in order. While you are in listen-only mode, you are invited and encouraged at any time to submit your questions or comments using the question button on your screen. Following the presentation, I will share your questions with Monroe, and he will be most happy to answer them. Attendance at this presentation entitles you to receive 1.5 hours of PACE-approved continuing education credit. Shortly following the webcast, you will be emailed a brief survey with instructions on how to receive your CE. Participants are cautioned about the dangers of incorporating techniques and procedures into their practices if the course has not provided them with adequate clinical experience to allow them to perform it competently. I am now pleased and excited to introduce to the Practice Perfection stage for the first time, Mr. Monroe McKay. Hello, Monroe.
Hey, how you doing, Danny?
I'm doing well. Great.
Excellent. Well, hey, thank you so much for letting me participate tonight. I'm really excited to be working with AIM Dental Marketing and be able to share some hopefully very valuable ideas and information with you tonight. So as Danny said, I really appreciate the introduction, Danny. Danny is a true pro, and I really appreciate having been able to work with him over the last few months here. So as Danny said, I have been in the dental industry for about 13 years now, and I've had the privilege of working with quite a few startup companies. So I've been able to see pretty much everything from the business perspective, as well as pretty much everything within the dental practice. Initially, I helped build a training and support department for one of the first companies I worked for, and was able to work very closely with everyone from the doctor all the way down through the team, and specifically work with the practice on their communication side of things. So really being able to see a lot of the business aspect within the dental practice. And that's been very enjoyable for me to really help practices identify things that can really help them maximize their capabilities in terms of working directly with their patients to really enhance the overall patient experience. So yeah, very, very excited to be able to engage with everyone tonight, and glad to be able to share some of the information that we'll go through here. So first of all, just to show a quick intro of myself. Let's see here. There's my little family. So actually, this is what Utah looks like as of about yesterday. Before that, it had been extremely dry and warm. We'd been in the 60 degrees, which is very abnormal for Utah. So luckily, over the past couple of days here, we've had about a foot of snow, which is great, except for having to shovel the driveway, which I've done a couple of times over the last couple of days. But this is much more how Utah is supposed to look. So here's my little family. My wife and I met actually working at Sundance, Robert Redford's resort here in Utah. And there I bartended for Robert Redford and a lot of the Sundance Film Institute board members. So that was an enjoyable thing. But my wife and I met there about 15, 16 years ago. And we're married. As you can see, we've got 4 little kids, 3 little boys and a little girl. Our oldest is 10, our youngest is 4, and they're fantastic. They're obviously a handful, and they keep us extremely busy, but they're amazing kids, and we really enjoy it. So I love spending time with my family pretty much anywhere in the outdoors. We love skiing, golfing, going to the lake, whatever it is. So that is the McKays in a nutshell, and that's just a little bit of my personal background.
It's a beautiful family,
let's jump
Monroe,
right in.
and you're in the right place given all your interests and passions. So
yeah,
good for you.
I appreciate that's absolutely true. Utah is kind of a mecca when it comes to outdoor activities. So I know Danny has spent some time out here and has hiked a lot of the mountains and skied around here. So anyone who likes skiing, I'd encourage you to come to Utah. So many other people go to Colorado, so it gets a little more crowded. So actually, we don't mind too much because it keeps the crowds down, but it is a fantastic place to come visit. So especially now that we got some snow, it's a great, great spot.
Best snow in the world when you got it.
It's the truth. Light and dry, and it's fantastic. I've been up about 5 times this year, and every day has been pretty good. Now is much better though. So I'm going to head up as soon as I can. Okay. So jumping right in, seems like a pretty obvious statement in some ways. Dental patients are just like us. However, what we're going to do today is kind of dive in and really think about that statement. So obviously, dental patients, a lot of times we're on the other side of the chair and we view things a little differently, when we're in our work mode. But what we really want to do today is kind of back up and think about what our patients' experience is like as they come into the dental practice. So yes, really, they are just like us. And you can all imagine, I love hearing patients try to talk when they have all this stuff jammed in their mouth, but you can just hear her saying, really? And the answer is yes, really, they are just like us. So let's think about that real quickly. What are some of the ways that we're the same? We're thinking about this specifically as it relates to a consumer or, a patient. So first of all, we are all consumers, are we not? We all, have things that we have to purchase. We all interact with businesses. We all consume products and services. And so in that way, obviously, we're very much like our patients. Secondly, this is a fairly generic statement, but we all generally shop in similar ways. And of course, not everyone's the exact same. We don't all go to the exact same stores. We don't all, go to the same websites or whatever it is. But overall, we do really kind of gravitate towards particular products and services for a lot of the same reasons. So we generally kind of share that as well. We also generally gravitate towards similar brands, and we'll talk about that as well, how important branding and a brand is to a business. So there are specific things that really attract us as consumers. And most of the time, that is something that is shared as far as a few different components that we'll talk about. So we also are generally loyal to those same brands for similar reasons. So once we choose a brand, very often we remain loyal to it, and there are specific reasons for that we'll go into here just in a minute. Also, we're all patients, or we should be, right? So even if we're a dentist or a team member, at some point we all are going to end up in the dental chair, most likely. So again, this is all to help us kind of back up for a minute and just think about what is the patient experience, and let's put ourselves in our patient's shoes so that we can really kind of understand that and create an experience that's going to be very beneficial to our patients and obviously in turn to us and our practice. So here are a few brands as these all pop up, and obviously these are some of probably the most recognizable brands in the world. So as these pop up, I like to kind of look at this and think about what do each of these brands invoke. As far as when I see each of these brands, is there a particular feeling or a thought or, you know, a particular product or service that comes to mind? So as you look over this, I mean, I can pick out a few specifically. Disney, I can look at and say they get probably 3/4 of my paycheck, unfortunately, because with my young kids, whether it's going on vacation to Disneyland, which we do frequently. My dad lives down in Orange County in California, so we end up there quite a few times over the course of the year, or buying their DVDs or, you know, stuffed animals or clothing or whatever it is. But really beyond that, Disney, there's something about it. It kind of invokes in me a particular feeling because I grew up with it. So it kind of has that, you know, for lack of a better term, the magical quality to it. And there's a lot that Disney does to really create that feel. So we'll kind of talk about some of those things. Nike, I mean, automatically you kind of think about, you know, athletes and sports, and I think about pretty quality products as far as, you know, shoes and clothing and different things like that. Walmart, I can look at and say, okay, well, convenience, price, obviously those are things that are kind of synonymous with Walmart. Unfortunately, as much as I would like to shop at other stores, I end up there very frequently because it's really close to my house. And for whatever reason, every time I need something, I can go there, find it in a very quick amount of time, and it's always, you know, very inexpensive. Amazon, and I won't belabor this too much longer, but Amazon convenience for sure, because really I can get anything from toothpaste to an airplane, it seems like, on Amazon, all by sitting on my couch on my laptop, and I can get all of that delivered right to my front door. So as you look at those brands, just think about that for a minute. What is the feeling or the quality that each of those invoke? And what is it that those companies do to create that feeling or that emotion around their brand? So let's think about this again. Why do people choose these brands? And again, we've already kind of gone over this a little bit, but there's three probably key ingredients to each of those brands as to what it appeals to in us. One is cost, another is convenience, or quality, or any combination of those, obviously. So as it relates to the dental practice, we don't necessarily always want to compete on cost. Obviously, there are situations where that would make sense. And there are practices, obviously, that, you know, are known for being less costly version of a dental practice. However, I think for most of us in the dental practice, there are other things that we would probably want to focus on more than just cost. Convenience and quality are two of those things that I think we really have a lot of control over in our practice. And those are things that we can really build a brand around as far as being that type of a practice that's going to attract patients who are looking for those things, convenience or quality. And cost, you know, potentially can be a piece of that as well. But overall, I think we really want to focus on the convenience and quality. So something that I learned early on in the dental industry is that you go to dental schools and you talk to dentists that are coming out of school and, you know, just starting their practice. And unfortunately, I think, you know, for a long, long time, dental schools really did not teach much about the business end of the dental practice. But pretty quickly, I think every dentist and every team member learns that the dental practice is actually a business. As much as it's a unique business and we offer obviously very different products and services and, different things to our patients, there is still definitely a business aspect to what we do. So when we think about it in those terms, that means that really the success of our business is going to be very dependent on our ability to attract, serve, and keep consumers, or obviously as we call them, patients. So any business obviously has to focus on that. How do we get, customers or patients in the door? How do we keep them, keep them coming back, create that loyalty? And how do we serve and, keep them happy and utilizing our services as much as possible? So there again are some things that we really have to think about as a dental practice as it relates to the business side of our practice. And of course, these are the people that we get to serve and take care of. So I love, obviously, the Bill Murray one. Probably most people have seen Little Shop of Horrors, probably one of my favorite movies as it relates to dentistry. However, as we look at that, unfortunately, those are the images that a lot of times pop up with people as far as dentistry goes. And really what we need to do is help change the mindset as far as our patients go, help them understand really what we're providing to them, the value, the service, the overall happiness that comes from actually having a healthy mouth and a good looking smile. So that's part of what we need to do as far as really branding our practices and helping our patients understand what the value is of coming to the dentist. Okay, so now that we've established, and obviously we all know that our dental practice is a business, let's think about it from the terms of what a business would look at. So as I said, having been in the dental industry for about 13 years now and really being a part of a few different startup businesses within the dental industry, I see many, many parallels as far as what our business does versus what happens in a dental practice. And again, there are many differences as well, but there are a lot of similarities. So if we're thinking about it from a business perspective, what do you like as a customer? So think again, as far as what are the businesses that you like to go to? And what is it about those businesses that attracts you in the first place? Is it, is it the look? Is it the way it makes you feel? Is it the actual product or service? Is it the convenience? Is it the quality? So this really makes us take a step back and think about it in terms of the golden rule. So let's think about it from that perspective. What would we like if we walked into the dental practice, and what would really, appeal to us as a patient or a consumer? So another thing to take a look at is to look at our success based on not just the product, but really the customer experience or the patient experience. Again, I think that as a patient, many of us think of the dental practice that most dentists can do a fairly good job, right? Like most dentists, at least in the patient's mind, went to school, learned how to do dentistry. Theoretically, everyone should do a pretty good job when it comes to dentistry. But what really separates one dental practice from another is the overall experience. It's the feeling that it creates within that patient that really creates that loyalty and keeps them coming back time after time. It's the connection that they have with your dental practice. So obviously, as it relates to the dental practice, creating that customer experience is extremely critical when it comes to the front office team. Most times that's going to be the first person that the patient sees when they walk in the door. And it should be the first person that engages with them when they walk in. So from that very first moment, and whether that's on the phone or whether that's walking in the door, whatever it is, the way that that person interacts with the patient is going to be extremely critical in helping to form that overall patient experience, whether that's going to be, a very positive experience, potentially a neutral experience, or even hopefully not, but a negative experience with the practice. Okay, so again, as we're looking from the business perspective, really when you're looking at the success and overall health of your dental practice, it comes down to three key ingredients as it relates to the dental practice. The first is attracting patients. So obviously when you open your doors or when you buy the practice, whatever it is, you really cannot have a practice unless you're getting new patients in the door. So obviously that's a very key component, getting patients actually in, and on an ongoing basis, making sure that we have a flow of new patients coming in. That's always very integral to the health of the practice. Once we get them in the door, though, it's extremely important that we keep them coming back. So we have to make sure that those patients are happy, satisfied, enjoying the overall patient experience, getting good service and good quality so that they continue to come back. It does us no good to get them in the front door if they're going right back out the back door. So getting those patients in obviously is huge, but really keeping them in the practice is going to be the bread and butter of any dental practice. Once we have those patients and they're coming back and they're really kind of a fan of the practice, or at least they're regularly coming to the practice, it's also extremely important that we maximize those patient relationships. So creating the trust and the bond with those patients to where they really take to heart the things that we treatment plan with them, helping them understand that there's more that we can do for them than just their every 6-month checkup, helping them know that, there are things that you can do as a dental practice to really create a better life for them. And those are very important things to help convey to those patients. So let's think about it real quick. What do those smart practices do to attract new patients? What do they do to get them in the door? A lot of times, and this slide makes me laugh because we deal with marketing quite a bit in our company. Marketing can be kind of an interesting riddle, and Danny knows this all too well because his company works very, very well as a marketing company. So understanding what appeals to your patients a lot of times can feel confusing, but that's why it's so important to engage with experts and really understand what it is that helps us appeal to patients and identify who those patients are that we want to get to. So in this particular slide, they're talking about millennials, and CTRs need optimizing for behavioral targeting of millennials. So it can feel a little confusing at times, but again, marketing is a very key component to helping create that overall patient experience. Conveying what kind of practice we are really will help to attract the type of patients that we want in our dental practice. So a couple of things to remember as we're thinking about marketing. Attracting new patients potentially can be expensive, right? So it's extremely important. It's something that we absolutely need to do, but it can be expensive when it comes to actually getting some patients in the door. So that's one thing to remember as we're thinking about our practice. Two, and this is as it relates to that first question, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So because you're spending the time, the money, the effort to get those new patients in the door, how important is it that we create a fantastic first impression and first experience for those patients when they walk in the door? And of course, famously, Head and Shoulders said that. So I don't know who wrote it, but that's who we attribute that quote to. So very important to remember, though, we really do have to focus on that first impression and first experience for those new patients. Third, your first personal interaction with the customer usually is a phone call. Very rarely, as far as experiences that I've had with most practices, does a patient just walk in the front door and say, hey, I'm here and I want to check out your dental practice, right? Most of the time, in fact, almost all the time, they're going to do some research about your practice. They're going to find you on the internet. They're going to hear from a friend, whatever it might be. But their first interaction with your practice in almost every case is going to be a phone call. So again, how important is that first experience on the phone? That can make or break the potential to actually get that patient in the door. So very important that we take advantage of that time on the phone with those new patients. So let's think about this as well. One of the most important things as it relates to customers or patients, and this is interesting to me. So research suggests that the number one issue with converting people into customers or patients is their fear of making a wrong decision. So I think about that in my own case. When I go to, the car dealership, or I go to wherever it might be, when it's an expensive or an important decision as far as I'm concerned, there is always kind of that thought in the back of your mind. You don't want to make the wrong decision, right? So that's very important for us to understand. We need to help our patients feel good about the decision that they make. And a lot of that is removing barriers to them making that decision. So again, most behavioral psychology and studies suggest consumer decisions are based primarily on emotion and intuition, not logic and rational thought. So as much as when I walk into the BMW dealership, I may have done some research, I may have, thought about the cost and, how mechanically sound this car is or anything else, ultimately what's going to get me to make that purchase or make that decision is really going to be emotion and intuition. If any of you have taken any sales classes, this is one of the first things that they teach. Really, it's all about the emotion. It's helping someone understand, how is this going to make my life better, and help them put themselves in those shoes to see, okay, making this decision really does make me feel better and, more fulfilled or happy or whatever it is. So obviously, brands are going to use emotion to sell because that is such an important component of the decision making when it comes to purchasing a product or service. So often, and especially recently, I've watched a lot of commercials and branding over the last few years, and I think more and more companies are really going to this. Instead of facts and figures and all those kind of things, it's the emotion surrounding whatever that product or service is. So I'm going to just start this video. There's no sound, so I'm not going to, well, I don't know if you can you hear that, Danny?
Okay.
If you throw it on speaker, we might be able to hear it.
Okay, one second.
Do that then. Where?
Hear that any better?
Hi, Freddie. What you doing?
Things look so bad everywhere in this whole world. What's that? Bring me higher,
Thank you.
higher, thinking of
Hi, Chad. Hi, Carla. Hi, Mr. Boss.
I'm not too late for it. Until then,
Hey, look at this. Is that a cardboard person?
to
Look at that.
take the night alone. I could light the night up with my soul on fire. I can make the sun shine with your desire. Bring me higher, bring me higher.
Okay.
Bring me
Okay. So I think that's a perfect example to me of using emotion to sell. So without the little logo at the bottom, how many of you would have even known that that was a Hershey's commercial? Really, it kind of had nothing to do with Hershey's or chocolate or anything else until pretty much the end of the commercial. It was telling a story. It was creating an emotion. It was trying to connect with you on some emotional level. And during that, obviously, they introduce, okay, this is Hershey's, and that's what this is all about. But really, again, what we're talking about is creating that emotional connection with customers or patients. And more brands are really utilizing that, because that is something that you can do to really separate yourself from other brands. Hershey's could have come out and said, you know, our chocolate contains so much more cocoa than the others, or it's this or that, you know, statistically or anything else. But ultimately, again, is that really what's going to sell us as a customer? Or is it going to be that emotional connection that we feel with that brand? So as we're thinking about how we market our practices, that's a very important thing. Obviously, our patients need to understand that we have a quality product, service. You know, it's a high-tech office, whatever it might be. But that emotional connection is something that's going to be very important overall. So again, just to reiterate, so effective marketing can be expensive. It's very important, and it's absolutely you know, essential to getting patients in our doors and have them become a patient of our practice. But usually our interactions are going to be on the phone. So again, understanding the importance of the initial phone call with our patients is going to be extremely important. Patient experience starts with the first call, and you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So as it relates to Weave, which obviously is the company that I work for, we have specifically the ability to pull up patient information so that when you're on the phone with a patient, it goes from more of a defensive call where, you know, and right now, most practices, the process is, okay, who is this? How do I spell your name? Okay, let me get into Dentrix or Eaglesoft and find out your patient information. When that patient potentially could have been coming to the practice for, you know, 15, 20 years and would potentially expect that we know who they are. So with the Weave system, we actually pull up all that patient information before the patient, or before you even pick up the call. So you can see who you're talking to. You can see family members that come to the practice. You can see photos if you're putting those into the practice management software. And you have all the details surrounding that household. So you know who's past due for an appointment, you know who has an existing appointment, who has an appointment, a birthday coming up, and even if there's an outstanding balance. So now you have much more insight into that patient's call. One of the other things Danny and I have talked about is that if it's a new patient call or you know, a non-patient, we will notify you so that you know that this is potentially a new patient and it's time to put your game face on. So Danny and his company provide a lot of phone skills as it relates to communicating with those new patients. The Weave system can let you know that this is potentially a new patient. And then Danny and people like him can really help you understand how do you connect with that patient or potential patient very quickly and create that great first impression to actually get them into the practice. We're going to actually skip the game. This was intended to be more of a live situation, but let's jump into phones and talk about how this works in the dental practice. So this is another commercial I'll show real quickly, and I'll put it on speaker. Were you able to hear that the last time, Danny?
It wasn't the greatest, but maybe you can up the volume
actually,
if you're going to play the
we'll
audio.
skip through this. I'll just kind of explain it real quickly. I think it illustrates a good point. So this is a college kid calling home to her parents. And she calls, and her dad picks up the phone and basically makes her go through an entire process of, okay, tell me what your identification number is and what's your last name and what's your mother's, maiden name.
Monroe, actually, with that little intro, because it's a pretty funny video, if you show it and just let people know that they're just illustrating how to the voicemail to the absurd extreme in the home front, which is really what this is about. Yeah, give it a whirl.
I'll do that. I'll play it real quick.
Thanks for calling, Mom and Dad. To talk about why you haven't had children yet, press 1.
Talk to a parent.
To explain why you Hello, this is Dad speaking.
Hi, Dad. I was just calling to say.
Sorry. Just could I get you to confirm your 16-digit account number?
Yeah, it's 00000.
I think it's Zoe.
Oh God. 0000002.
Okay, please hold.
Your call is very important to us. Mom or Dad will be with you shortly.
Okay.
Wait,
Can I get your date of birth, please?
June 8th, 1987.
Okay, and your mother's maiden name?
It's Lee.
Yeah, it's Zoe.
Oh.
Hey, sweetheart, how you doing?
Dad, I'm okay. I'm just overwhelmed. I'm doing my taxes. I can't.
Oh, taxes. Sorry, honey. That's a question for Mom. Let me go ahead and transfer you.
Oh, no. Wait, Dad. It wasn't a question.
Hello.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, honey. Can I just confirm your 16-digit account number, your date of birth, and my maiden name?
But I just gave that information to Dad.
Okay.
Mom?
Please hold dear.
No, wait, Mom. Come back, Mom.
Okay. So I think you all get the point. To me, like you said, Danny, that's just a ridiculous way of kind of illustrating what some experiences are like on the phone. And
Right.
as I watch that,
I think I'm glad you shared it because it, like the tagline there says, don't let bad support get in the way of good relationships. Companies, in the interest of efficiency, I think, convince themselves or truly believe that that's what quality service is. Although, if you've ever been on the other end of the line, I think you pretty much know. And if we remember what you started with is that consumers are just like us, efficiency is essential. It really is in success, but you can't do it at the expense of the personal touch, especially in healthcare, where showing that you care is critical to establishing and maintaining a good relationship with your patients.
You're absolutely right, and that's exactly it. So, again, like you just said, Danny, when we put ourselves in the shoes of someone who's been on the phone with a company like that, how likely are we to want to interact with a business like that? To me, that is not a company or a product or service that I want to be a part of.
Family.
So, exactly, yeah. If that's what I was getting from my parents, that would be pretty painful. I'm not sure I'd be able to call back. So, again, let's think about that from our dental practice perspective. And, you know, as we think about what is it like when a patient calls our practice, when we pick up the phone, is it, you know, we're happy and upbeat and engaging, and do we know who we're talking to, and can we get right to their needs and not have to spend, you know, a minute or 2 minutes really figuring out who we're even talking to before we get into the important details that the patient called about potentially. So again, obviously a ridiculously over the top version, but really important in terms of illustrating, what is the experience like when we're on the phone with our dental practice. So just like you said, Danny, the tagline there, don't let bad support get in the way of good relationships. Let's remove whatever barriers there might be there to really create a great first impression, a great first experience with our practice. Okay, so as we think about it again, phones really are what we call the lifeblood of most practices, because that's where the vast majority of communication takes place. So every time a new patient calls to find out about our practice, to potentially schedule an appointment, to whatever it is, whatever interaction they have with our practice, most of that communication is going to happen on the phone outside of the 1 or 2 visits a year that we actually see our patients. So it's extremely important for us to utilize those phones to create the best experience possible. Smart businesses have processes and tools to help convert calls and appointments. So recently, I think I called Olive Garden, and this was an interesting experience because putting myself on the other end of this. I called in, they knew immediately who I was. They knew the last time I came in, they knew what my last order was, and really, created a very quick and easy phone call and made me feel like, oh, wow, they actually know who I am. Of course, they didn't just memorize my voice or my phone number. As we know, too many people are calling their business to really, know us just by voice. But what they did have was a tool to help them understand that. So businesses obviously are utilizing systems like that to create a better overall customer experience, more efficient, better connection with their customer. So as a dental practice, again, if we're learning from businesses and how they create these type of experiences, that's really something that we need to figure out as it relates to our dental practice. And currently, Weave is kind of the only system that has the integration with practice management software to be able to pull that data. So very similar to what these businesses are using. That's what we're trying to bring to the dental practice, is the ability to create that wow first experience on the phone and be able to connect with these patients very quickly and really create an efficient, great phone call. So smart businesses also use data all the time to understand how is our customer service, how is our first experience. Are we converting, phone calls into actual visits to our business or purchases or whatever it is? I ask dental practices all the time, are you aware of what the busiest, time of the day is? Do you know what the busiest day of the week is? Do you know when you're potentially missing the most phone calls? Out of your missed phone calls, do you know how many of those are new patient calls versus existing patient calls? And for the most part, dental practices just don't have that information because there are not systems in place that can really gather that data and help them understand exactly what's going on as far as statistics go. With the Weave system, we actually, because we're integrated with the phones and the practice management software, we can tell you all of that data. We can tell you, what was the busiest day of the week? Did we miss a whole bunch of calls on any particular day? And what time of day was that? Were those new patient calls? Because again, as we go back to it, it's obviously expensive to get someone to call our practice. So how important is it that that we actually pick up the phone and engage with those potential new patients? So that's something that's built into the Weave system. That also is built into a lot of smart business systems to really help them maximize their capabilities when it comes to communication. And again, we've already kind of touched on this, but when it comes to engaging with patients, there are some tools, text and email communication, different things like that help us engage with our patients. And as we think about it, obviously we want to engage in the way that we would want to be communicated with, and also the way that our patients want to be communicated with. So the Weave system also has built in direct two-way text, to where we can text message our patients directly from the desktop, just like we're communicating from our cell phone. But it comes from the practice phone number, so that they are texting directly back and forth with us there. There's also automated text and email for confirmations, reminders, birthdays, recall, many different communications, which again creates convenience for the patient, but also engages with them in a way that's more convenient for them a lot of times. For me, when I get a phone call during the daytime, most of the time, if it's a number I don't recognize, I don't pick up, or if I'm at work or different things like that, usually I'll get a voicemail and I'll have to return that. But if I get a text message, that's something that I can even be in a meeting and I can respond right back and communicate in a very short amount of time. So let's jump in and talk a little bit about reviews. I think most of us as consumers interact with reviews fairly regularly. So when we go online to look at a product or a service or a business, in almost every case, that business is going to have some form of reviews. And it's extremely important that we put those in the right location and also understand what they can potentially do for our practice. So first of all, let's go through, we actually pulled some reviews from dental practices just to kind of illustrate the power of what a review can do for your practice. So first of all, some kind of not so great reviews. This one says, money hungry, unable to file insurance properly, sending me to collections, rude, unwilling to help me straighten out insurance mess. Prices are high, they trick you into price dental practices, or high price dental procedures you don't need. So this, obviously any of these reviews, we can almost understand. There are certain situations where, you know, this potentially could be applicable to almost any dental practice. This could just be a miscommunication with the patient. But this is not something we necessarily want to have out there for the entire world to go see. Not something that's going to attract someone to our dental practice. So there's one that we're not so excited about. Here's another. Children have been going to this dentist for years, never had a problem until the oldest broke their tooth and was in pain. They were informed that they couldn't see him for 5 days and they couldn't prescribe any pain medication. Again, this is an understandable situation. You can't just, you know, prescribe medication for a patient you haven't seen and those type of things. But again, this is something that potentially could be damaging to our practice, and also something that probably could have been taken care of if we were able to just communicate with that patient and help them understand what was going on. Last one, as far as, you know, negative type review, asked multiple times if I'd be able to have my teeth done here. They said yes. Get my appointment 30 minutes early. It took 2 hours to be seen, just for the doctor to tell me she didn't have the ability to do it. You know, so on and so forth. Again, not something that's going to be super helpful to our practice in terms of getting someone into the dental practice. So if we put ourselves in a potential patient's shoes and we look at these, you know, this is something that probably is not going to get us to choose that practice. And again, every practice, every business is probably going to have a few mixed reviews, and that's okay. It is important to have some, you know, not all 5-star reviews, because those are seen as being a more legitimate business or product or service, or in our case, dental practice. So it's okay to not have all 5 stars, but again, we want to be able to get, you know, more of the great reviews that really are going to appeal to our patients. And sometimes that can make us feel like Kim Kardashian on a bad day, I guess. So we might ask that question, why? I can't look at her for too long. She drives me nuts. Okay, so let's go look at, on the converse side, what some potentially 5-star reviews might look like for our practice. So this person says, you know, they're never super excited to go to the dentist, but his super team helped me to make the visit enjoyable. His assistants explained to me really well what they do and were very gentle with me. Everybody in this office is smiling, polite, and professional. They're also very up to date with technology. You should see all the super advanced gadget tools they have. So now what's the feeling that this creates if I'm a potential patient looking to go to a dental practice? This is great because it tells me that this practice cares. You know, they make me feel good. Care. Absolutely, absolutely. And they have obviously all the capability to do everything that I needed them to do. They have great technology. Everyone's smiling, polite. This creates, in my mind, a very positive, you know, upbeat experience. This is something I would want to be a part of. Here's another. Amazing customer experience, easy on the teeth. I've never had a better receptionist experience. 100% awesome. She went above and beyond helping me get a complicated dental surgery scheduled. It was painless, went smoothly. The office is professional, clean, not overpriced. Go. So again, this is everything we would want as a dental practice. You know, great experience from the very second she walked in the door. The receptionist was great. The doctor was fantastic, helped her understand. It was painless, all that different stuff. So these are, this again is a great review, something that would definitely attract me to a dental practice if I saw something like that. Another one, this is the last one. You know, some of us hate going to the dentist, but this office will have you wishing you could come back for a checkup every month. Wow, that's a great endorsement. The office ladies are so helpful and sweet. My hygienist went above and beyond for me. Definitely the best one I've ever encountered. The dentist was so nice and approachable. He answered every question that I had and made me feel so comfortable. Highly recommend this office to everyone I know. So again, just the power of a review. When we look at that, even though it's online, let's jump over and look at some statistics real quickly. 93% of millennials turn to online reviews before making almost any purchase. And I've experienced this firsthand. I'm not a millennial. I'm just a little bit older than the millennials. But so many of my coworkers are in that group. And they don't care if someone tells them straight up. I go on the road and we'll get a recommendation from a local on a restaurant or something like that. Immediately they go to Google or Yelp or wherever and look to see, oh, did it actually get, good reviews? And if it didn't, they won't go even if they have a personal endorsement. So it's pretty interesting how powerful those online reviews are to that group. Obviously, not all of us have, a majority of millennials in our practice, but more and more, these are the people who are coming to our practice, and these are the people who are going to be moving into that core group of patients that we're going to have in our practice. So this goes beyond millennials. 88% of all people trust online reviews as much as a personal recommendation. So that was extremely interesting to me. Really, most people, when they read an online review, would trust that just as much as if their friend or family member told them that this dentist is great and that they should definitely go. So again, just tells you how important having those reviews is. 77% of patients use online reviews before selecting a dentist, optometrist, orthodontist. So again, the vast majority of our patients are looking online to find information about us before they come to the dentist. So now we're feeling a lot better, much more like The Rock. Very nice. So it's important, again, we've pretty much established that obviously having online reviews is an important thing for our practice. When you think about it, so if a review is just as important to a potential patient as a personal recommendation, then really this is one of the best ways for us to get patients in the door, because most of us know that the best source of new patients is existing patients. Getting a raving fan or a testimonial, someone that will go out there and tell the story about what a great practice we are. Well, barring being able to put someone on a float and take them, around the streets and having them yell how great of a dental practice you are, online reviews are the best way to do that, because that's going to get us the widest exposure. So obviously, as we think about how do we take advantage of our raving fans, and we've all got, people who have been coming to our practice for years and years and are ecstatic about, the treatment they've gotten, and they refer their friends and family. Again, one of the best ways to take advantage of those is to have them actually fill out an online review. So most of us, having been to, a business or something like that, have received a post-appointment survey of some sort. There are a number of different ways to collect reviews for a practice. A lot of times the best case scenario is to do it in a way that is personal and helps us interact in the best way possible with our patients. So being able to send a text message to a patient right after their appointment saying, hey, we really appreciate you being a patient. We value you as a patient and strive to make you happy, whatever it is. Would you refer us to your friends and family? And then just having a yes/no response, to where if they say yes, we'll take them directly to Google, Facebook, Yelp, the places where most people are searching for a dental practice. Most reviews, or a lot of the really good review systems, which we provide, and there are multiple other systems out there that do it, the same thing. Being able to collect those in a efficient way via text. We also would have, if a patient said, no, I would not refer your practice, we still want to hear from those patients, but we don't necessarily want that going out across the internet. So being able to collect those no responses in an internal format, to where we can actually address those problems, but not put that out on the internet, is kind of the best case scenario. So like I said, there are a number of different ways to collect reviews, but that's extremely important for the dental practice. So let's think about this. What do smart practices do to retain patients? And most likely it's not this, right? Not this type of treatment. Again, from one of my favorite dental related movies, Little Shop of Horrors. Maintain contact. Business data suggests that it takes about 7 interactions to gain acceptance, or to have someone utilize our products or services. So as we think about that, we can't make phone calls 7 times a year to our patients. But what can we do? We can send text messages or emails for birthdays or recall notifications or notifications about, a new product or service. As long as it's done in a way that your patients like to interact with the practice, that's a great way to help gain acceptance and to maintain contact with your patients. So again, Weave actually has a system to send automated text and email communication to really interact with your patients on a regular basis. And obviously there are different ways to do that, postcards and different things like that. But as we're putting ourselves in our patient's shoes, more of us all the time are probably preferring, text communication or email communication because it's convenient. So that's a very easy way to maintain contact. So again, modern methods of communication, social media is important, being able to communicate with our patients via Facebook, where a lot of our reviews go, or automated communication, as we talked about, text messaging. I'm going to skip this video in the interest of time, but it's just funny because it's these two older actors reading text messages from people online and just kind of showing this is how most people communicate. Oops, we'll jump to that. So again, yeah, I just jumped through there. So about over 50% of consumers are loyal to brands that interact with them in their preferred channels of communication. So again, more and more of that is done via text and email and online communication. 81% of consumers feel loyal to brands that are there when they need them, but otherwise respect their time. So again, we have to make sure our interactions are done in a way that we're not overwhelming our patients, but we're communicating with them important information, things that they need as far as interaction with our practice. So how do you know what the right way is? Well, I think the best way really is to ask our patients. Let's interact with them and actually find out what is their preferred means of communication. In most cases, again, that's going to be something that's convenient for them. Some may still prefer a phone call or potentially even a postcard, although that's probably a minority of your patients. More and more that's going to be, communication via text or email or, other formats that are easy for the patient to interact with. So another way to keep patients coming back is to create a habit. When it comes down to it, retention really is a combination of comfort and habit. So creating an environment that our patients feel comfortable in and creating a situation where this is a habit, our patients consistently come back. One of the best ways to do that, again, is consistent communication and being done in a way that actually engages with those patients. Comfort, of course, is going to come from familiarity with the practice, genuine concern. So being able to consistently communicate with those patients and form a relationship beyond just, you're a patient of our practice. When we really get to know our patients and know their needs and their interests and different things like that, that's going to create that connection and that comfort. So another really important thing is when we are thinking about how to create the best experience possible, really utilizing our existing patients and those that love our practice and are loyal and come back consistently is probably the best way to create that 5-star experience. So from a business perspective, over the last couple of years, we formed a advisory board for our company. And we chose a whole bunch of different people, that use our system or have direct connection to our system to really get feedback from them. What is it about our company that you like? What are the things that attract you that, are exciting about the system? And on the other side, what are some things we can improve upon? What are things that you would like to see our company do? I think this is extremely important for the dental practice as well. Let's communicate with those patients who are fans of our practice or people that we know will be open with us and communicate and tell us, and really find out what is it that creates, a place that you want to be a part of. What are the things that we do well that we should focus on? What are some of the things where maybe we can improve upon those as well? Consistent contact, obviously that's important. So we want to continually communicate. And we've already talked about that a little bit as far as consistent communication comes from systems like auto text, confirmations, reminders, recall, different things like that. What do smart practices do? Oops, let me back up real quickly. To maximize their patients. And again, this is obviously not it. We need to be caring about our patients and showing genuine concern. So strengthening and building relationships. Again, let's think about that. Why did a patient choose your practice in the first place? Let's find that out. And then let's really focus on, repeating that and even expanding whatever it is that made those patients choose our practice. Like a little thing you hear frequently these days, your vibe attracts your tribe. So whatever that vibe is, or that image that you're putting out there, that's what's going to attract those patients. So let's find out what it is that attracts the type of patients that we want to have in our practice. So it's extremely important that we educate our patients, make sure that they know what we have, what products and services we offer, and make sure that they know that's coming out of genuine concern. I don't know how many times I've talked to practices that say, we had a patient in our practice and they said they went down the street to get whitening or an implant or something like that, even though that practice offered that particular service or procedure, but the patient just didn't know about it. So we have to make sure we're educating our patients about that. And whether that's, communicating while they're in the practice, whether that's sending notifications to our patients about, a new product or service we're offering, or just something they may not know that exists within our practice. It's also important for us to be aware of what their treatment plan is so that we can consistently follow up on that and make sure that they're really utilizing the treatments that we have and filling or fulfilling their treatment plan. Okay, so as we think about it, again, it's extremely important we get new patients in the door, but how important is our existing patient base? A repeat customer has a 60 to 70% chance of converting or utilizing our products or services. After one purchase, a customer has a 27% chance of coming back again. After 2 or 3 purchases, 54% chance, obviously that's going up. So really, one of the most important things we can do is focus on our existing patients. A lot of times we do focus so much on attracting new patients, which of course is extremely important. We have to ensure that we're getting new patients coming in the door. But patients in the practice already like us and trust us. So there's a much higher likelihood that we're going to be able to appeal to those patients and they'll utilize our services. So let's focus on that existing patient database, and let's really create that experience that's going to help us to maximize our relationship with those patients. So real quickly, and this is, we're just coming down to the end of time here. Airbnb, probably most of us are familiar with. They're a multi-billion-dollar company now. Interestingly, though, we actually kind of talked about this at our company for an example. Airbnb, when they started, had basically no customers, just like any new business. And what they really wanted to figure out was, how do we create something that really appeals to the type of customers that we want to attract to our business? So what they did was go directly to one of their few customers, sat down with them for an entire day and said, okay, you tell us, what do you want? What would appeal to you? What would create a great experience? And they virtually took notes that entire day and created their entire business plan from that single customer of theirs. So not suggesting that we do that 100% as far as, create our entire business plan around a single patient, but that just shows and illustrates how important it is to really get feedback from our patients and understand what it is that creates that experience that makes them want to choose our practice and continue to come back. So just to summarize, as we've talked about it, there are lots of businesses out there doing some great things. Obviously, they're spending a lot of time and money to create these type of experiences. So from our mindset, it's important to remember that even though these companies are massive and maybe spend a lot more money than we'll ever have on marketing and those type of things, what one person or business can do, another can do. So as our dental practice, as we look at these examples of companies that have created a great experience for their customers, we can absolutely create that for our patients. So taking that example and building upon it, we can definitely create a fantastic experience that will attract the type of patients we want and keep them coming back. So thanks everyone for the time today. Real quickly, here is my contact information. This is my cell phone number, so if you ever need to get a hold of me for any reason, that's my cell there. Email address, monroe.mckay@getweave.com. I'll leave that up there just for a second if anyone wants to write that down. And then
we'll
finally,
be sending this off as a final, as a follow-up to the presentation as well. And there's the slide I was looking forward to seeing.
So you got it. So for all the attendees of this webinar, what we've done is given a pretty substantial discount if you want to take a look at Weave. So for anyone who wants to sign up for a demo and actually take a look at the system, this runs through the end of the month. So we're doing free activation, normally $799, 2 upgraded phones. Just so everyone understands, we will actually replace all your phones for free. There's a standard version of the phone. So we would come in and replace all the phones as well as becoming your phone provider. So you'll actually be able to drop Comcast, AT&T, Verizon, whoever it might be. And then we also integrate directly with your practice management software. So we then are able to do all the things that we talked about, pull up your patient information, give you all the background information, do text, email, all the different things that we kind of went through today. So 2 of those phones would be upgraded as well, which is a $700 value because it's times 2. So total savings of nearly $1,500 for anyone that wants to sign up for a demo. To do that, you just go to www.getweave.com, click on the demo tab and enter code February ADM for AIM Dental Marketing. And we will make sure and apply those discounts to you if you decide you want to give Weave a try. There's no contract with our system either, so it's a month-to-month situation. We believe that we want to earn your business month after month, so we don't want to lock into any long-term contract. So that is that's the end of the information that I have. But Danny, I know you potentially had some questions that were chatted in over the course of the presentation.
I do indeed. I have questions and comments. Thanks a lot, Monroe. That was excellent. Thanks for delivering what you promised. And the reason that if a business can do it, any business can do it, is thanks to the fact that technology has become more accessible in terms of cost and usability. But it's because of people like you, like Weave, who have made the investment and basically are then able to allow others who, if they tried to duplicate this themselves, would have a difficult time, because this is sophisticated technology. You're far more than a phone company. I'm certainly glad you mentioned, because otherwise people might not understand exactly how you can do this. But the Weave system integrates with just about every practice management system in the dental vertical, which means that when someone calls, there is a wealth of information that gets pulled up immediately, and that's how the team members are able to really get personal and efficient. Be efficient also. There's no making false statements, assuming that the person is paid up or that their insurance is still current, things like that. And it's not perfect, of course, but it really does give you a leg up. And then, as Monroe shared, for people who call that don't come up, then you can you can, as he said, put your game face on, and then that's where what we like to call it, mastering the art of first impressions, comes in, so that you can connect with these callers and convert more and more, because the marketing is expensive, and the average cost to generate a call, depending on the competitiveness of the area and the nature of the tactic being used, is anywhere from, in our experience, $80 to $300. Well, when you consider that the long-term, the average patient value patient profitability, the lifetime value is in the area of $5,000 to $10,000, and that's based on research that I've seen that was done at the University of Minnesota. The cost of the call is just the tip of the iceberg. It's the opportunity cost, the lost revenue to be sure, but also the lost opportunity to help this patient and potentially their friends, family, and coworkers. That is the real cost. So I'm very passionate about this, and that's why I'm excited and appreciative that Monroe, you took the time to do this, because it's such a nice compliment. You can sort of, Weave covers the patients of record, and we focus on helping you convert the non-patients of record. But at the same time, once they're a patient, now you've got a really organized system to help maximize the value of the practice to the patient. And of course, the other side of that coin is maximizing the value of the patient to the practice. So with that, let's dive into some questions here. First one came in a little bit early. In your experience, what are some things practices have done to make the biggest impact for their business?
Absolutely. So just like you talked about, Danny, I think, the whole concept that we just talked about, identifying that your practice is a business and understanding that the tools and the systems that you have in place really help you create that experience. So I would say, one, identifying areas that we can really hone in on and focus on to create that overall patient experience, and then really developing some strategies and some systems to help us take advantage. As you said, it's kind of a combination. You have to have systems in place to give you the information and to make it somewhat actionable, so that there are things that now we can do to actually create that experience. So I would say, it's a couple things. It's having the system in place similar to, Weave or some of those other systems that are out there, but then really having the ability to take action. And I think a lot of times that comes from communicating with a company like yourself, someone that has the experience to really help you understand what you can do with that data and that information. So I would say for sure, identifying, areas to really help us create that experience, and then utilizing systems and coaching to reach where we want to get.
Excellent. Okay. I just got another one that's kind of it's a comment, and I think this one just came in, but I think it's really important that we jump on this one right now.
Sure.
I love the fact that Weave records phone calls, and we can use that for training purposes. However, she says, however, the team does not want to be recorded. Your opinion. I think what she is asking is, what do you do in those situations where the team does not want to be recorded? I'll let you answer. I definitely have an opinion on this. And I guess what she's asking is, can you turn that function off if you want?
You sure can. So a couple of things with that question. One, that is something you can turn on or off. So that functionality can be, utilized or turned off, whichever your preference is. One of the things I like to look at, and I fully understand, there are plenty of team members that maybe don't want to have phone calls recorded for whatever reason. So a couple of things to look at. One of the reasons for that, recording those calls, is training purposes. So again, if we're getting coaching, if we're utilizing systems, we want to make sure that this is working, right? So we do want to have the ability to go back and review that information. One of the other really important uses for that call recording is being able to review conversations for other purposes, such as a patient, says that something was said on a call, that we promised a certain, service or price or whatever it is, and that potentially is not true. So if we're able to go back and review that call, I don't know how many practices I've talked to now who said, and that saved us because we were able to go back, pull that call, and actually let the patient know that, this is actually what was said on the call. So as it relates to questions surrounding conversations, that's something that a lot of times is very beneficial for the practice. So for team members to understand, this is not just for us to, listen in and snoop on your calls. This is really to improve, again, the overall experience for the patient and for our practice. But ultimately, if you do want to turn that service off, you can.
Right. We actually offer the same service when we do our new patient, our get the phone to ring, our lead generation services. We offer at no cost because we're that committed to we realize the importance of it that much, that we can track calls so that at least we know the source of them. So, and that allows us to quantify the results from various marketing tactics that we employ. We just put a unique telephone tracking number on a direct mail card or on a website or on a pay-per-click campaign or Facebook ad, et cetera. And then we know how many unique calls were generated. We also strongly encourage the team to record, and I, of course, understand why there's some hesitancy. It's the same reason, really, that people don't like to do role play, is they're not comfortable with it. And in the case of recording calls, there's a sense of there's a feeling for some people that their privacy is being violated. First of all, I would say that if you're going to record calls, different states have different laws. Some of them are two-party states, and some of them are one-party states. But it's a good policy to get explicit acknowledgement in the form of a brief release that you ask your team members to sign. Obviously, this isn't going to be the first thing that you approach with them to get them comfortable with having their calls recorded, but I wanted to make sure I mentioned that because it is important. And you did a good job, I think, explaining the truth, which is we're not trying to catch people in the act of doing something wrong. What we're trying to do is provide a positively invaluable resource to maximize their efficiency and effectiveness on the phone. There's the two key tools to master the art of first impressions. Once you understand what to listen for, once you've undergone the coaching, is role play and being able to listen to your conversations. These are tools to help you improve, nothing more, nothing less. And the other thing, it reinforces good habits. When you listen to recordings of successful calls and you share them with your team members, once you get over the discomfort of that, it's an amazingly steep learning curve that you get on. Very, very time efficient. I've been coaching teams for 15 years now, at least. And every once in a while, I got a situation where the owner said, I'll just say Mary, it wasn't her name, but yeah, we love the training, but Mary refuses to have her calls recorded. And I thought I was going to say, okay, well, who's going to be working after you fire Mary? But they said, no, we're not going to do that because they respected Mary's right to not be recorded. And I respect everybody's right as well. I just think it's an unfortunate situation because you basically deprive yourselves of the opportunity to learn a great deal. And people don't often even realize what they're doing. When we talk about telephone skills, we talk about the fact that really, in most cases, you need to make a friend before you make an appointment. And because people don't care what you know until they know that you care. So we talk about the importance of establishing rapport and conveying empathy and exuding enthusiasm. And people may think they're doing all that until they and their people who care are listening to the call. And then people are often astounded that I had no idea that I had that tone to my voice, or that I talked over people, or that I dominate a conversation like I'm doing now. And I'm going to stop, but I'm very passionate about it. And if you're going to be coaching somebody, and just be prepared to address this understandable concern about being recorded. Bottom line is, the sooner they get over it, the better it's going to be for them and for the practice. All right. Next question. What are some of the tools Yeah, cool. What are some of the tools you've seen successful businesses use to create ideal customer experiences, Monroe?
Yeah, so one of the companies that I worked for early on, and a lot of people are probably familiar with this company, Solution Reach. When I started at that company, really there was not much text or email communication, and at the time, it was seen as kind of ahead of its time, honestly. A lot of the practices that I was talking to, dentists would say, well, I don't even have a cell phone, and I never get text messages or email or anything like that. Since that time, and that's been, 14, 15 years ago, this has become really a primary means of communication, the text and the email. So again, because I've spent the majority of my time in the communication arena, those are the areas that I have seen a lot of improvements. So when it comes down to it, utilizing technologies like that to communicate with patients in the way that they want to be communicated with, whether that's text or email, having the ability to educate patients in a consistent way via, a newsletter or whatever it is. And then really kind of bringing that all together when it relates to the phones. And this is not just a commercial for Weave, but I have seen and heard so many responses from our practices that this was a total game changer, because it now gives me so much insight into my patients, and these conversations that I have are now so much more about communicating with the patient instead of having to get information like the video that we watched with the patients having to collect, or sorry, the parents having to collect, identification and all that stuff. It now becomes a situation where we have the ability to create a true friend on the phone and create a really, great patient experience as it relates to that. So I would say, again, I'm a little biased, but I think that the communication side of things has become some of the tools that are very important to a practice. And I would say, again, coaching is a big deal for a lot of practices as well, because as you mentioned, Danny, knowing what to do with the information is extremely important. Knowing, how to utilize that data or that information, that's where the rubber meets the road, and you're really able to create that value within the practice.
Yep. And well, the next question was, do you offer actual training on how to handle tough phone calls from new patients? And I think we sort of addressed that already, that Weave provides the data and the recording ability, and then, my company or other companies can actually help to coach the team members to convert the calls. Is that essentially correct, Monroe? Weave doesn't get involved in the actual coaching, right?
Not a whole lot. I mean, like you said, we do try to make sure that the practices know how to utilize the information that we have. But when it comes to, really the phone skills training and those type of things, that's where, your company and companies like yours are extremely valuable, because you have a wealth of experience and all sorts of practices that, you have worked with and really know exactly what that communication looks like. So I would say that's absolutely true. We can provide the tools and the capability to communicate that way, but it really comes down to, companies like yours, Danny, to really help a practice utilize that information.
Well, that's why I'm such a big fan of Weave, because it fits like a hand in glove with what we then do too. Just a brief plug in this for us, related to video, to reviews and to telephone skills coaching. When we do coach teams, we also help with verbiage to encourage patients to provide reviews. We're also, I think, unique in this regard. We offer a guaranteed 9-step process for generating patient testimonial videos. And those are really excellent, good as gold, in terms of not only providing social proof for patients who are considering joining a practice, but they also help get your website ranked, because as you all probably know, Google owns YouTube. And when you're regularly feeding them a steady diet of optimized videos, properly named, described, and tagged, and then they link back to your site and are placed in context-appropriate landing pages, that really makes your website pop, and Google and the other search engines take notice. So the next one, the only one we really have time for, is this last one, which is probably a good one to end on, Monroe. What single feature within Weave have you seen make the biggest impact?
Yeah, great question. So I would say the two most utilized features, and really I'll get down to the top one, but I would say two-way text has been really convenient and really impactful for a lot of our practices. That's probably the number two most utilized, because it gives practices the ability to connect with patients that in the past they were just leaving voicemails for and hoping that patient would call back. Probably number one, though, is really the screen pop, as we call it. And really, again, what that does is create an immediate connection with the patient. So instead of me having to, fumble around and try to figure out who I'm talking to, I know exactly who I'm talking to. Hey, Monroe, thanks for calling us today. Hey, looks like your wife has a birthday. Happy birthday to her. Looks like you and your son or your daughter are past due for an appointment. Let's go ahead and get you all scheduled. So now, again, this has become a much more impactful call because I've connected with the patient immediately. And now I've also created a ton of efficiency because I was able to take care of potentially 2, 3, 4 tasks instead of saying, okay, great, Monroe, you're scheduled, hanging up, and then realizing, oh man, there were 3 or 4 additional things I could have talked to Monroe about, including even collecting an outstanding balance, which now I'm going to have to go back and generate, an invoice or a postcard of some sort to send to that patient, where potentially I could have just taken care of that all on the phone. So I would say really that's probably the most impactful feature within Weave. And again, just for efficiency and really for creating that patient experience where we know who they are and we engage very quickly.
Right, and just imagine, I couldn't agree more, Monroe. That's the wow factor. I mean, when you call the typical dental office or any healthcare provider or any retailer, of a smaller size or local business like dental practice is, our expectations are pretty low. and when you call a practice and they have all that information, I mean, it's done properly so it doesn't creep them out. But I mean, that says this is not your run-of-the-mill dental practice, and that sets the tone for all the future touch points and communications. And when people are treated like that, they know that you're a professional and you respect them, and so you're literally going to be less disappointed, because people don't cancel appointments with people that they like and respect. So I couldn't agree more. I think that's an excellent feature, and it seems like every other practice I talk to has your service. So I know you guys are doing something right, because I remember when you first hit the scene, and you've grown a lot faster than a lot of technology companies. Well, a lot of technology companies aren't around at all anymore. So keep up the good work.
We will do our best. No, it's been fantastic. I've been with the company just about 3 years now, and we've seen our customer base nearly double every year since I've been here. So it's been extremely exciting. And like you said, I mean, I think that we've really tapped into some areas that practices really need. It's kind of a unique system, and it's something it's fun to be a part of.
Yep. And you haven't been afraid to. You've been open to learning and growing, and that's something else that's the hallmark of a successful business. They really put the value of their offering uppermost. So I want to thank you for that in general, and again, thank you very much for the enlightening and entertaining presentation. Now, in a few days, you will receive an email with instructions on how to receive your 1.5 hours of CE credit. I ask that you now please mark your calendars for Thursday, March 29th. Our very special guest presenter on that date and time will be Robert J. Whitman, MSE, who will deliver a presentation entitled Sex, Drugs, and Oral Cancer: Recent and Emerging Technologies for early discovery. The course introduces new adjunct therapies, including fluorescent technology and quantitative cytology, with special emphasis on proper implementation. You, your practice, and your community need to hear this important message, so please register soon. In the meantime, I want to again sincerely thank you, Monroe, for your time, expertise, and generosity with that great offer. And of course, thanking all of you for your continued commitment to practice perfection. Goodbye, everybody.